listening to The Magnetic Coach, a podcast for those who want to stand out, be seen, and communicate with clarity and confidence. I'm your host, Linda Ford. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Magnetic Life Coach. And I do appreciate I stuck that little word in there, life coach, because what we do in this podcast is we talk about how to become more magnetic as a coach and in life, right? So isn't that clever, Del? I added that in there. So anyway, I'm so delighted today because this is episode 8, I think it is, but who's counting, right? And I have my first guest. And I couldn't have wished for a better guest because she is my dear friend, Del Adey-Jones. Welcome, Del.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited that you finally got your podcast out there. We've been
I know it's taken a while, hasn't it? But you know, things do get done eventually.
That's wonderful. Yeah, but now, hear your voice, so this is great.
Now, I have to say to you listeners out there, Del is a really dear friend of mine, but I've only really known her for about 2 years through the Three Principles community. And we've never met in person. And yet when we met online, there was just a click. There was it was really clear to me that we were kind of cut from the same cloth in so many ways. And first of all, we're both Brits. When we came from this very dysfunctional working class background, which we're going to talk about in a minute. We're both in our 60s. She lives on the West Coast on the ocean in Malibu, and I live on the East Coast on the coast in a place called Rockport. And we've had this pretty much the same kind of dysfunctional experience in relationships with men. And so we're gonna, anyway, a lot in common. And I'm just really excited to have this conversation. Del, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and tell people what you do, and then we're just gonna dive in deep.
Wonderful. So, well, hi, everybody. My name is Del Adey-Jones, as Linda said, and what am I?
What are you, Del?
What am I? Well, I'm a Three Principles practitioner, but I specialize in the area of codependency and narcissistic abuse. But I say I'm a Three Principles practitioner still because I love teaching everybody about the principles and sharing with them how it impacted my life and completely changed my life, I should say. But what's really dear to my heart is people that suffer from codependency and narcissistic abuse. And again, given that was my history, that's something like that I struggled with for many, many years. And I know the subject inside and out, as well as studying it.
Yeah. Can we start by having you define it for us, Del? Because my understanding of codependency, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, isn't it? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so I'd love to hear your definition. What we're talking about here.
The basis of codependency is usually, the literal translation of rather is that you're dependent on another human being. So that's where it originates from. And you're usually dependent on another human being who has some type of, that's where it first originated from. It was partners of either alcoholics or drug abuse or any other sort of type of dependency. The partner of that person that was addicted was called a codependent because they were so addicted to trying to change and manage their partners. But there's a much bigger description as well. Usually it points to an incredible sort of low self-esteem. Secondly, again, as I said, it's wanting validation from the outside. It's like you don't really believe that you're complete as you are. I always say that they're looking for people to complete them. So often dependents think that they're worthless. They they're not as strong or as capable as other people. So that has them tend to be attracted to narcissistic types who look very confident and very, powerful and enigmatic and all of that stuff. So that's one part of codependency. The other one is a massive fear of abandonment, because often as a child, they were either abandoned again because they grew up in a household where there was addiction, or maybe mental illness, or being the child of a narcissist who would abandon you every time you stepped out of line. So there's a lot of, behind that abandonment issue, which causes people to be people pleasers. Codependents are people pleasers, yeah, because what you're trying to do is secure that relationship. So if you put your focus on the other person and they need you or enjoy being around you, you think you're actually sort of, that's a little insurance. They won't leave me if I put their head of mine. Yeah. That's a huge one. We also are attracted to people that, as I said, that need us. Again, that's insurance. They need us. They might not leave us if they're, have issues of their own. The other one is needless and wantless. We pretend to be needless and wantless. We get into relationships like, hey, I'm cool, I'm fine. And then slowly as we start saying, well, hang on, what about me and my needs? It's too late because we've already attracted, a narcissist who really wants it to be all about them. We take things personally and we feel responsible for everybody's feelings around us. I was trying to sort of calibrate everybody else's emotions.
Boy, sounds like you're describing me. I mean, I recognize myself in all of that, but so that's the good thing is to recognize it. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, but
no, it's fine.
It was hitting home a bit too hard there.
In the past, we'll say. But yeah, it's that lack of self-worth that we end up tolerating abusive relationships. When I say abuse, I deal with people with what I call emotional and psychological abuse. It can get physical. It can get to the point where often I would say actually anybody that's staying in a physically abusive relationship, as well as what I deal with, which is the emotional and the psychological, is suffering from codependency, because they do not believe that they can survive on their own. They believe that they need the other person, even though they're tolerating incredible abuse. So those are really,
what's really interesting, it's coming up, I'm thinking about just your descriptions, is that in some ways, at least I tend to think of people who are codependent as kind of weak and needy, which they are. But there's also a real control freak in them, isn't there? Like they want to control other people so to make themselves feel okay. It's interesting, that dynamic, isn't it?
It is. And I always say anybody that wants to control another person's behavior is coming from a place of insecurity. And you can describe that as needy but if we are confident in ourselves, we don't bother with trying to control our environment and everybody in it, because as we know from the principles that there's such a thing as separate realities, and everybody else has what they need within them to settle down. We don't have to manage them or control them. But the other thing I was going to say is not everybody that's codependent appears to be weak and needy at all.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that, you can show up, and you tell me where I'm wrong here, but it seems like a lot of them are very manipulative and they want to control someone else. They don't, their demeanor isn't one of a kind of mousy,
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Well, it's not even that. It's even more than that. Often very sort of type A, high achieving. I'll use women just as the example. It can go both ways, but I'll use it as, say, a woman. So here's a woman who's always been, done really well at school. She's a high achiever. She does great in the business world, but she does not know when to let go of something. Everything is a challenge to her. Everything is something to be overcome and won over. So when somebody's displaying really, traits that are narcissistic, as in being sort of domineering, controlling, dismissive, all of those other, arrogant, all of those things, instead of going, oh gosh, this person's not a good match, they see a a work in progress. I can fix them, I can change them, because they've got all these other wonderful qualities, which most narcissistic people.
Yeah, I've been there, I've done that. Yeah.
And so it's not coming out of a weakness, or even, I tend to not use the word manipulative or controlling, because it has a negative connotation, because most people that are trying to manipulate and control, it comes from a place of trying to settle themselves. When somebody else is behaving in a way, and they are, because they're so porous, they take it personally, they try and manage that person so that they will feel better. Whereas if they understood that, that person's just going through what they're going through, that has no bearing on me, I can just, go and get busy somewhere else and let them settle down and recalibrate. But if people don't know that, they immediately go into this place of, oh my God, I've got to calm them down, I've got to control them, I've got to, and it's a misunderstanding. And I have compassion for myself included, who was like that for many years. I was just trying to actually calm myself down by calming the other person down.
Does this condition that we call codependency, does it always stem from a dysfunctional childhood, or can it just manifest later on in life? Could you have had a normal, healthy upbringing and still be codependent?
That's a really interesting thing. Most of it is either, they say it's hereditary. If you've had a parent that's codependent, you've witnessed that behavior.
Oh, okay.
Just, or when I say hereditary, environmental, you've witnessed it and you sort of mimic, how we know generational patterns of generational dysfunction go through our family. So that's one way. So that might be a very, what we call a mildly dysfunctional childhood, just witnessing a codependent parent, or a parent that just has weak boundaries. They just can be smothering. Or that, as I said, there could be that narcissistic parent that is, rejects you if you're not actually sort of reflecting well on them, or if they don't agree with your behavior. But so there's mild, and then there's severe cases where there's, abandonment, abuse, neglect, and, that child grows up hyper vigilant. Like, how do I, you're constantly on high alert, checking your environment, checking everything's okay. When's the next shoe going to drop?
Oh, that was me. Yeah. I can remember distinctly coming home from school every single day. I used to love being at school to get out of the house, because it was so, high drama. And about half an hour before getting into the house, on my walk home from school, I would be dreading and go into high alert, walking into the house and wondering, first of all, checking to see if everything was okay, or were they fighting, my mom and dad. And as soon as I, knew that everything was fine that day, then I could feel my system settle down, But that high vigilance, like just high alertness, is it safe? Am I going to be safe? Is it, that spent years living that way.
Wow.
So we know how it plays out in relationships. Can you give me an example of how it plays out, say, in business, like for coaches?
Okay, great. Yeah, because I always say I've been in the most beautiful, wonderful relationship for the last 12 and a half years. So it doesn't show up there. It doesn't show up with my relationship with my children anymore either. But the last area where it can still show up is for me with my clients, because I can tend to be a little bit of a pushover. I can be like, oh, what, you want to cancel last minute? That's fine. Or the other one is, oh, what, you can't afford to pay me? That's fine. I'll do it for free. But
she's not like that now, though. She's not like that now. You guys out there, okay? She's changed.
Yes, exactly. That was me up until a couple of weeks ago. Exactly. Thanks for that clarification before I get everybody reaching out saying free coaching.
We've all done. A lot of women do this, right? I wonder, do men do this? I have to. When I have some male guests, I'm going to ask them about that. That's really interesting.
I think if they have codependency, absolutely, they're going because it's always about putting other people's needs ahead of your own. So you're trained. So whether you're male or female, I do think you have a point, though. I think culturally, more women are encouraged, especially as young children, to be nice, to be the nice little girl, to always be polite, always, give, I was going to say the shirt off your back, but your last candy to somebody. But that whole sort of praise for always putting other people's needs ahead of your own is far more ingrained in women than it is in men.
Sure is, for sure. Okay, all right. So, Del, why did you decide to focus on this area in your coaching? Because, we see a lot of in the principles, the focus is more on, just are you looking for a nice feeling in life, or would you like to know how we create our experience? This is the work that you do is a great example of really focusing on a particular target of a person with a specific problem. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, can you just say about how that evolved for you?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I first did my first coach training in 2006 was when I first got some of my certificates.
Time ago, yeah.
Some of them, I've got many. But again, codependency, I just need one more certification and then I'll be ready. But anyway, but when I came across the principles, it was in 2009. But when I really dove in really deep was in 2015. And then I, prior to that, I had, because I knew that my own struggle, I'd been in therapy for 30 years trying to overcome my codependency and attraction to narcissists. And I was coaching in that area. That was something I specialized in. Then in 2016, I think I mentored with the Pranskys, and George was like, oh, you don't need to specialize, just, this is for everybody. So I took that on. And I also heard there's no such thing as personality disorders and, blah, 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 mental illness. So I thought, oh, I can't talk about that stuff anymore. And then I don't know how long ago it was now, maybe 4 years ago, somebody reached out to me and said, it was in the 3P community. And they're like, I heard you used to coach in this. I think I'm with a narcissist. Could you help me?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and she was a 3 principles practitioner too. And so we had a few sessions and she was like, oh my God, this is life-changing. You really need to, help other people struggling in this area. And then I realized at that time, I thought, oh my God, the principles were what really helped me. I always call it the cherry on top of the sundae as far as all the work I'd done in my therapy and all my other spiritual disciplines. But the principles were the one that I saw something so simply and so differently that it helped me completely get out of my codependent behavior. So,
wow. Yeah.
It was huge. So I was like, well, okay, I'm going to specialize in this area again. And I chose that niche, not because I wanted to niche down, but it sort of was, it found me, and it's where I saw where I got the most joy, because I could actually see somebody that was suffering in so much pain and unaware of this conditioned thinking they had, and that I could help show them the way out. It was so satisfying. And again, as I say, I think it's often a misunderstood area. There's a lot of shame. People already feel ashamed because they're like, why am I tolerating this abuse, emotional, psychological abuse? Why aren't I strong enough to leave? And if you don't understand the brainwashing that goes into those types of relationships, somebody can be on the outside looking in and going, what's wrong with them? Why don't they just leave? Well, it's so much more complicated than that. And I have so much compassion, having been there myself and being stuck in a long-term relationship for a very long time and not having the strength or whatever it was to leave. So I love that I have had the experience. I love that I have compassion. I love that I don't have the expectation of like, oh, just get over it, leave. What do you I have all the patience in the world to help somebody see that they have options, and that the way that they've been looking at things might not be really the way it is,
Yeah. So when you approach people, that's kind of like your specialty, right? What has been your experience when you kind of get them, to sign up for coaching with you for this problem, what has been your experience about sharing the principle? I mean, does it happen naturally? Is it like really, how has it been for you? Has it been really effective?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing I say, I have a lot of people coming to me that have been around the principles for a while, and they, or that maybe they're even relatively new to it, and they hear this phrase that's often bandied around, which is, it's just your thinking. It's just your thinking.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you showed up, and I've heard teachers say, think differently and he won't be a narcissist anymore, or she won't be a narcissist anymore. That's just it's too simplified for me. That's not my experience. If somebody showed up with a broken arm and a black eye, I would say you're being abused.
Yeah, it's just your thinking.
You would never say it's just your thinking. But for some reason, when it comes to emotional and psychological, they think
interesting. Yeah.
Miss it with, if we don't think about it, we don't experience it. And so I do get people come to me that are like, oh my God, I'm so relieved, because I definitely am a combination. I studied spiritual psychology for many years. I completed a master's program in it, that I use some psychology along with the principles, because as we know, we're spiritual beings having human experience, but human beings have psychology. So I don't think
and herein is another reason why Del and I are cut from the same cloth, because I'm very much, we call ourselves hybrids here. Yeah. We're very much the same philosophy in that. So yeah, absolutely. We know that, and this term we also use, these earth suits that we have, right? They contain so much information, and they've been trained to show up, in the way that they do, that's unique to all of us, and to kind of discount what's happened. It's kind of a bit of a what we call spiritual bypassing. And let's just be clear that what we're not saying, are we, Del, is that we don't go down this huge rabbit hole of going back and digging up all the stuff of your past life. It's just that we address, how would you say it?
Yeah, I'll always say to somebody, we're going to go back to see where that thinking first took root.
Yes.
Stay there and indulge and go down the rabbit hole with it. But I really do want to to me, it's like pieces of the puzzle. Intake. I want to hear about how you grew up, what was the family dynamic, how did you feel, what did you witness between your parents, how did you feel about it, what did you witness within your siblings if you had them. That's just intake for me. That gives me the pieces of the puzzle that I can put together and make sense. And I share that with them. I say, well, it makes sense because of this and this and this, that you would develop that thinking as either a survival mechanism or a coping mechanism. But can you see that's been running the show from behind the scenes? So once we can identify it and say, yeah, that was an important part of your childhood to develop that coping mechanism, but we don't need it anymore. And then we move forward. I
love that. I love the way you describe that. It's like a puzzle. It's like the piece of the puzzle, and really seeing how it all fits together. It allows you to really see how you've been living, you've been creating these habitual ways of being, right? So I love that.
Yes.
I love the fact that you are focusing on a particular kind of problem. And as I always call it, like we're kind of meeting people where they are, right?
Absolutely. And that's the other thing is, if you just simply say, I mean, I don't call myself a 3 principles practitioner that much anymore, but I am a spiritual teacher, and I'm going to teach you these spiritual tools. Once we've, addressed the psychology part, I'm then going to teach you these spiritual tools where you are going to see yourself so differently in life. You will never think, oh my God, I need that other person, in need as opposed to want. We might want another person, but we don't need them. So we work on that. And by constantly looking back at these spiritual principles, we really gain this natural, incredible self-confidence that comes up. We know that, love is not something that's outside of us, that we have to win or gain or grovel for. It's something that we're made of. It's within us, that feeling of love. The resilience, we think we've often told ourselves we're weak and pathetic and we need this big, strong, powerful person. Well, that's not true, because we've got everything within us that we need. So I help point people back to that. And so yeah, that's
I love that you're bringing that up, actually, if I can just, because this is a really good segue into, because what I talk about on this podcast is how do we awaken and accelerate our magnetism in life. And so what you've just described, Del, is when you begin to see the patterns of that you've been taught, that you've had all your life, and you can get the freedom from that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about how that really impacts. What are the ramifications of awakening your ability to magnetize the life that you really want?
Yeah,
I mean, that's huge implications right there.
It is. And it's so funny, because one of the classes I give is called, how to become a narcissist repellent as opposed to a magnet. Because when we show up in our codependency, we are unwittingly attracting narcissists to us, because we show up with this low self-esteem. It's all about you. I'm nothing. You come first. But what happens is, if when we tap into that strength that we have within us, that wisdom that is everybody's birthright, we show up differently, and we will be a magnet for healthy relationships when we show up in the world healthy. So we're magnets, we're a magnet to healthy relationships, and we actually become a repellent then for the ones that want to take advantage or abuse or manipulate and control and all of those other things. So it's so important. It is an inside out job. It's 100%. We tap into that innate wisdom and resilience and everything we talk about. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, quickly mention, when a codependent is in a narcissistic relationship, what I always think is the what's the word I'm looking for? The thing that hurts me the most to see or to witness, and I went through this myself, is that you come out of these relationships not only not trusting other people, but you don't trust yourself. Mm. Because have years of gaslighting and people saying that, and you say, but I saw this, and they're like, no, you're crazy. You're just crazy. Now, when we learn or recognize that we have this wisdom within us that always has our back, is always guiding us, it doesn't matter if somebody is denying our reality and saying, no, that never happened. We are so centered in our wisdom that we're like, you can say what you want, but I know what I saw, and I know what I believe, and I know what I feel, and I trust that. And looking in this direction gives people back that confidence in themselves, which I think is priceless.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Because I went through years of being gaslighted, and I know that feeling of going through like, oh my God, I just really doubting, myself. And did I really say that, or was that really my intention? And you second guess yourself, and it's a horrible place to be in. Absolutely. And it's also a very powerless place. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I got out of my relationship with this person that my ability to magnetize what I really wanted became so much stronger. It was like it was the leaving and the seeing of the dynamics that really gave me that rocket fuel to kind of, wow, I have a power. I'm learning to have a power and a clarity for what I want in life, so much more than I had before, So yeah, there's one thing we forgot to touch on here, Del, and I wanted to ask you about, because you yourself went through years of dysfunctional relationships, codependency, your narcissistic abuse. can you speak to how that is really a powerful way of connecting with potential clients? Just the fact that you've gone through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear it all the time. I hear from my clients, they're like, oh God, it's so helpful to know that you understand, that you've lived it, you get the nuances, you have zero judgment. And yeah, it's so important. I think it's also, for coaches, I think it's, so not only are you, I know I said this to you the other day when we were talking, and I said, if we're looking for a doctor, say, we have cancer, we're not going to go to a brain surgeon. We're going to find an oncologist. We want to know that who we're going to understands the problem or the issue, whatever you want to categorize it as, inside and out. They're an expert in it. They've got your back. They understand, not just from a theoretical point of view, but also from a lived experience. So I think that's really important. The other thing is that when you niche down, besides obviously people being able to find you, the easiest way to niche down, and I've shared this with you before, is what was the thing that you overcame? What was the biggest obstacle you overcame in life? And right there and then, that's your niche, because that is the hardest thing you ever went through, and one that you came out the other side. That, to give that to other people, to give them hope, to say, if I can do it, you can do it. Trust me. It's
really powerful. Yeah.
Powerful. So when we talk about niching, it's not just sitting back and going, God, do I fancy being this or do I fancy being that? It's like, no, just what was your biggest obstacle that you overcame, and that you can inspire and help other people with the same issue.
Yes. Let's not be why do you think there is this kind of reticence, or if that's the word, to kind of positioning ourselves as specific coaches for specific problems? Why do you think that within the principles, the 3 principles community, I wonder what that's about, do you think?
I think it's twofold. I think part of it is, like I said, a misunderstanding. I was taking there's no diagnosis, there's no anything too literally, because as I always say to people, I'm using codependency and narcissism as a shorthand to describe a set of behaviors. I'm not diagnosing the person. We all know that, beneath our sort of human suits, as we say, that we're all these incredible, beautiful spiritual beings. But the truth is, we all show up on the world in our physical world of form slightly differently. And some of us have some baggage, and some of us have some behaviors that are not that healthy to ourselves and to other people. So we're just talking about behaviors. We're not talking about the essence of who somebody is. So that's huge. And then also, I think it's just because how did I introduce myself? I was like, I'm a spiritual teacher, a 3 principles practitioner, and I specialize in this. And that's because I love coaching everybody. That's the truth. Now, what my sweet spot, and where I believe I really have an advantage that not many other people have, is because of my lived experience and my education, the combination of both. But I think we're afraid of losing out on other people. We're losing.
Yeah. Well, it's a scarcity mindset, actually, in a way, when you think about it, isn't it? It's like, if I don't coach them, then I'm going to lose them. Or
no, mine's not scarcity. Mine's actually coming from a place of, but I enjoy,
Yes, there's that going on too. Yeah.
For me, it's definitely I enjoy, because I would say right now I have probably 75% of my clients, maybe 80, are to do with codependency and narcissistic abuse. And it's not just women, it's men.
Yeah.
There are people that either have a narcissistic parent or a narcissistic boss or a narcissistic sibling or a narcissistic partner. I mean, there's many different relationships that you can have in your life. So I do like variety. I love it when somebody comes to me and says, oh my God, I've got to leave my job after 30 years because my boss is a narcissist and I can't take it anymore. And then we work together and they're like, oh my God, I don't have to give up my great job that I love, that pays really well. I just know how to manage my narcissistic boss now and not take his behavior personally. So I don't have to uproot my whole life. And I guarantee you, if that person had left that job, she probably would have got another narcissistic boss and had the same thing. So
Yes.
when we learn about this, we empower ourselves and we can make choices, informed choices, not we're responding as opposed to reacting to the situation.
So Del, where can people find you? What you have a website? I'll put them in the show notes also, but just let us know, what is your website called?
Yeah, it's called Adey-Jones.com. So it's just my name, no spaces, no hyphens. And yeah, you can find me there. The website is being updated as we talk.
Yeah.
This is still
websites they're a continuum. They're always being updated. It's like, every 6 weeks you get a haircut. Every 6 weeks I'm updating something on my website. It's just ongoing. It's all evolving, and our business is evolving. So yeah, I get that. And you're going to be starting a podcast, right? So we'll definitely watch out for that.
That one will be coming more towards the end of the summer. I've got some things, travel plans and things coming up over the summer.
And the book. What's with the book?
My book is going to be it's going to be partially memoir and partially based on my 6-week program. I have a program called The Way Out of Codependency and Narcissistic Abuse, which is, I've got the next one starting on April 30th. But I have incredible reviews and testimonials on people having gone through my programs. And so I thought it would be a great idea to put it into a book. So
and Del has some amazing stories. If you think you had a weird childhood, you have not, until you hear Del's childhood stories. They are straight out of a Dickens novel, I think, or a Thomas Hardy novel. Maybe that was it, But yeah, I can't wait to when you finish.
Go on my website. There's actually a little button there where you can download a PDF.
That's right. Yeah. So you go to the website and you can download an excerpt. So you get a take Del's world, or what it used to be like anyway. All right. So we're going to finish up, and if you could give one piece of advice or to anyone who thinks, it brings up the issue of do people know they're codependent, or what would you say to someone who's in a relationship and they don't know what's going on, but they know the symptoms? What would you say to them as a way to open up the discussion and to reach out for help? You know what I'm saying? It's what could you say to them?
For me, anybody that feels powerless, that they feel they're powerless, they feel that they don't have a strong sense of self or self-worth, I would say just those two things alone, if you're experiencing that, look into codependency, or call me for I offer a 30-minute discovery call, and complimentary, and we can see if maybe I have lots of free videos available already on my YouTube channel. I do the 6-week program, or I do one-on-one coaching, and I do packages. But what I would say is, that's not who you are. If you look in the direction of the spiritual principles that I teach, you will have such an incredible sense of self, a grounding in knowing who you are, knowing your value, knowing your self-worth, never allowing yourself to be abused, manipulated, controlled, bullied, dominated. Once you start looking in this direction, you can make, as I said before, an informed choice, not be in that reactive state. And it's life-changing. I mean, like I said, years of therapy taught me to understand my chaotic childhood, how it led to my behavior, but did show me the way out. And I found the way out. And I'd love to share that with other people.
I think, just to say one more thing about that, I think you and we both had that, something's off. And I knew that for 5 freaking years, and I still continue to, I call it sitting in my dirty diaper, That was just for 5 years. And sorry for the metaphor, because I did that, because I was afraid there was nothing better. on the other side, you know? And Del and I just want to say there is, oh my God, and I noticed on your website, the way out, you've got this photo of the door opening. And that's exactly what happens, guys, is that that door will open for you. And there will be doors there that you never even considered or even thought would be there. Right, Del?
Absolutely.
Isn't that what happens?
It is. And just to add one little tiny thing, you know, like attracts like. We don't get into relationships with unhealthy people because we're this incredibly healthy person. We have our own issues to look at or beliefs about ourselves that we need to shed. And as I said, tap into the truth of who we are, that magnificence of who we are. And then we will attract the person that is healthy and who responds. And
we have. That's another thing in common with us. We both landed on our relationship feet, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but after a lot of work on ourselves, not a lot of work. After discovering who we really are, it doesn't need a lot of work. We just got to know.
We got there.
We got there.
And it's worth it, guys, to get on that other side. Yeah. Del, thank you so much. This has been so great. And I wish you, I don't need to wish you luck in your work. You're already doing amazing work. Thank you for all you do in the world. It's such important work. And, you know, so if any of you have any comments or you want to reach out to Del, just you can make a comment on, if you're watching this on the video on the YouTube, you can actually hit the subscribe button so you can get more episodes, and you can leave a comment below there. And you can also reach out to me through the podcast and let me know whether this is the kind of conversation you'd like to hear more of, and why wouldn't you? So Del, thank you so much. I appreciate friendship and loved having you, and honored to have you as my first guest too.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. I feel exactly the same. It's been an honor. And I love and value our friendship too. So thank you.
Okay, Del.
Take care.